We are live. It is 2:11 p.m. Central Standard Time in the United States, 12 p.m. BST in the UK. It's the Nomad Tech Project with Sam and Joe coming to you live here on Sunday, the 17th of September, 2023. Joe, how the hell are you?
I'm good, thank you very much, sir.
You
Although
didn't do
it's
your
a bit
hay?
frantic getting
You
on.
missed your hay. You didn't do the hay part.
Oh yeah, let's
And I said,
start again.
no, let's not. Yeah,
Hey,
yeah. And if you're watching the live stream, we have a very special guest. You appear on the show. Thanks for coming in, sir. Appreciate taking time. I know I may mention right before we started that thanks for taking time out. And you said it's Sunday evening. I thought, well, I don't know, maybe you have something to do on Sunday evenings other than waste time with the Nomad Tech Project. So we appreciate you swinging on by.
No, not a problem. Netflix is going to be there in an hour still, so I'm going to have something to watch.
That's true. And then also, I think Friday was the season finale of Foundation. That's the show that on Apple Plus. That's a really good show. It's if you ever had a chance to check it out, it's I guess it's an Isaac Asimov book, and it's pretty good. I don't like Apple TV that much. I don't watch a lot of stuff on there, but that show is pretty good. I found it to be pretty entertaining. So yeah,
it's actually on my list to watch. There's quite a few kind of hard sci-fi shows that they recently released. But me and my wife actually finished the other day the After Party, which is a murder mystery kind of show.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of
it's really good. Yeah, it's very short. Characters are pretty damn good. And I really enjoy how it's switching between different genres pretty much every single episode. So it's kind of fun to watch and fun to work it out who actually done it.
Yeah, and it's kind of neat too because it gives you kind of like a little bit of something to do instead of just mindlessly watching, whatever. Just kind of, you have to kind of be thinking about it and then kind of catching yourself. Have to be actively listening, going, "Wait a minute, whoa. Did you get that?" And then probably have you run into a problem where you've got to the end of the show, you couldn't figure it out, and then you find out it was like halfway through you missed just a key piece of dialogue. You go, "Oh God!" It's like, why did you not hear it? And I guess your wife and you kind of look at each other and go, "Did you hear that?" And
that was the season one for us. We were like, "Oh my God, it all was there for you to notice," and it just shows that we didn't like pay any attention. It was just a thing. So season two, we're both like watching like hawks. It's like, okay, this person did this, like this is their story now. And when the things are starting to click, it's just such a good feeling that you are actually as smart as the writers were hoping for a viewer to be.
Right. That's why me and Joe don't go watch that very often because we'd be like, I missed all of it. That's okay.
Speak for yourself, sir.
Oh, right.
It's still a good ride.
Oh, anyway, so, well, let's see what we got going on. I guess Apple did a thing, right?
Yeah, we've got to discuss Apple really briefly, just briefly.
Or we could discuss it. I find it funny how it's all these different kind of pseudo camps, right? So you got the people who are happy that they went to USB-C, then people make fun of them because they go to USB-C, and there's like, well, they took an Android thing. I'm like, well, who cares how they got there? They got here, right? So are you just looking to throw shade no matter what? Because you wanted them to be on USB-C. Now the standard is there, right? That's a good thing, right? And then it's like, well, now they're just copying Android. I'm like, now you have a choice with cables, right? I don't understand it. So again, telephoto, right? I've seen people get on TV or on things like, well, this phone had the telephoto. Huawei had telephoto 3 years ago, and we've had USB-C for 8 years. I'm like, you're clearly, what do you want these people to do, man? To stay on Lightning and complain about it? Then they go to USB-C and now they're copying it. It's like I know, I can't believe I'm actually defending Apple approach, but it's like, I mean, they're kind of stuck either way. People are pissed off at them. It's like,
the only thing is the zoom gap. So the pixels are the same, like 5x. So you got 1x to main, and it's filling the gap between 1x and 5x. That zoom gap.
Yeah, I mean,
on the Pixel they crop in from the main sensor.
Right.
I'm guessing Apple are going to do the same sort of thing.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I mean, at least now they have some kind of an optical zoom, right? They've done the things that people, they kept the dynamic island, which I don't know. I don't like it. I think it occludes the display for me.
But it's so dynamic.
but it's dynamic. But at least they went with it, and at least they're sticking with it for at least another generation, right? So I don't know. The conversations are quite interesting. What is your take here? I mean, have you paid a lot of attention? Do you really care? I mean, what are your thoughts about this whole Apple 15?
I pay attention enough to be able to speak with people about those devices. I'm personally not very interested in what Apple is bringing to the table. I need to say it's really good, like you were saying, to have them finally supporting USB-C, for example, because I think it's bringing us forward to the universal plug that we are all hoping. But I've got 10 different USB cables near me, and you wouldn't be able to say which one's doing what. There are some that can power my laptop with 65 watts of power. There are some that can only do that, but not the display. There are some that are USB-C, but USB 2.1 speeds, which are just, it's not very good unless you're traveling internationally and you don't want to plug in your phone to the wall socket. You want something as slow or only moving the power really from the wall. But I don't really understand the fandom and fights between the Apple and Android. It's one of those things that, like you said, whatever Apple would do, there are people on Android front that will be saying well, there's a phone that is better on Android side. And then there are people on Apple saying well, we don't need higher than 60 hertz displays because Apple is making everything so fluid. It's kind of this moving goalposts every single time. Whatever you're going to do, you're always going to find someone that's going to be unsatisfied.
100%.
And then, like I said, I think at the end of the day, going to that standard is nice. I know there's various, I think the Pro and the Pro Max have the higher speed standard for USB-C. Yeah. They don't but it's, I don't know. I guess here's the thing. I will tell you that they have an action button now, and I know a lot of complaints for people was, at least on Android, you could double, there was a double hit the power, you can launch the camera or whatever. Now here's Apple essentially taking that functionality, and I think a lot of people are like, well, if they could just have a way to deploy the camera quickly on iOS, I could probably. They seem like they're trying to do. To me, what it is I think it's they're trying to finally scoop up the last vestige of any Android holdouts. Right? They were talking about USB-C standard. Done. They were talking about having an action button so that we can quick launch the camera or, have that functionality, right? Done. Telephoto, like having an optical zoom. Done. To me, it feels a lot like Apple's finally, I don't think it's a compromise. I think Apple's like, we're going to break down the last vestiges of why people stay on Android and start to break down those barriers. And then, interesting enough, and Mike's in the chat, this is what you're going to start to see. For the first time, probably, people who were kind of like, maybe if I was going to take a switch, maybe this is the easiest bridge, right? I don't have to make as many.
About the standard 15 though,
right?
Because he likes Pixel 7, Pixel 6, 7a. He doesn't go flagship normally,
right? And then
correct me if I'm wrong, Mike.
Yeah, and then and Dan, action pushing for some action, right? Yeah, of course. But I mean, I think that's what it feels like to me when I see this stuff. I go, I don't think it's Apple. I guess it's homogenizing the standard, but it's like they're finally trying to break down whatever resistance you have. And now, really, the only difference really would be is the OS, right? And different kinds of form factors, foldables, flippables, that kind of thing. I don't know. What do you think, Joe? I mean, that's how I see it. It sounds like Apple's trying to move to the middle and try to scoop up those last peripheral and maybe iPhone people, right? Maybe this is the year that maybe they take a swing on it and see what happens.
I think plus their yearly iterations, it's always going to go that way anyway. They need to make little changes, and this year's the telephoto.
Yeah, and the USB-C. I think those are. I mean,
USB-C, they wouldn't have done it unless their hand was forced.
Right.
Let's be truthful.
Yeah, and that's fine. And you know what? Sometimes, and I don't know how, I don't really like government intervention like that into private business. Sometimes I think it can be an overreach a bit in some cases. But I don't know, Peter, what do you think? Do you agree with Joe? And how do you feel about like the European Union basically forcing a technological standard to kind of get Apple to comply?
I personally am a big fan of European Union and how they intervene in those kind of situations. I think we're giving too much for people that were successful in one field. We are also quite often giving them too much free, not free will, but like
Free reign,
free
sort of thing.
self-governing in all other aspects.
Right.
I think USB-C should have been there years ago for so
Agreed.
many devices. I also think that getting Apple to step in now, it's only going to remove so much waste that people need to hold to themselves. I actually would be interested to see next quarter how much the accessories and services will we see drop or actually uptick from Apple, because theoretically they're going to be moving away from Lightning, but there's a cheaper alternative now for people who just can go to Amazon. They can type in USB-C to USB-C and have it within 48 hours and see how's the life on the other side. So,
well, I like the fact. Well, and also this is what always the comment I made is the Lightning standard, right? It's I don't care where you buy the cable, if it's Apple first party or a third party. It always every Apple cable I've ever had, right there, fails in the same spot, and it's almost to the point of it's so ubiquitous, it's almost a meme, it's almost a joke. It's like, and I told my wife, I said, she's really the only Apple user in the house, and I told her, I said, I have yet to have a USB-C cable break like that. No matter where I got it from, whether it was in the box, whether I bought it third party, whether I bought it at a gas station, right? I've never had it fail there. Every Lightning cable I've ever bought, and this is the one that came with my bank device because I have an iPhone at work. And it's getting a little chippy there. It's starting to peel. So, and almost to the point where I've seen people put like the springs. Have you seen people like wrap a spring around it, or take two matchsticks and like wrap it with duct tape or something like that just to kind of reinforce it? And it's like, you can't tell me that wasn't a design. That's not a design failure, right? That's not them purposely making it to break in that spot, because it's almost a joke.
There was, I wish I could remember where it was, but there was reporting that when the Lightning standard was being proposed internally, there was a massive internal fight between engineering and design team, because they wanted certain proportions to be kept, and design was actually got their final sign off. So they shortened the pins and the security sleeves, and that's what we're ending up with. I mean, I've got USB-C cables that are like almost inch long because they're Thunderbolt 4, and that thing won't break.
No.
But the Lightning, like you're saying, 3 to 6 months, and I think you're going to need a new cable one way or another.
Yeah, and I'm wondering. So we'll see. But I am happy about it. Is it enough to get me to switch to an iPhone? No, but I'm curious to see how that's what I'm more curious to see over the next 6 to 8 months. How many people that were on Android that were ready to upgrade, they go, okay, you know what? Let's see what's going on. Like, let's see what's really on the other side of the fence, right? We'll check it out and see. And I agree with I see Luis is in the chat. I agree. This is the first year Pro kind of lands a little better. It's actually, it feels like those are the Pro devices, right? A little better. Not, you could debate what you call Pro, right? I'm professional. I think all those terms, Ultra, Pro, Plus, I think they've all been diluted when it comes to handheld mobile devices, right? I think it doesn't really matter anymore. But I agree. I think this for Apple people, I think this is a good thing for them. But remember, there's so many devices still in the ecosystem, right? Apple, 14s and 13s. I mean, not many people are rocking an S8, that right? But there are quite a few people. Like this guy I was playing golf with yesterday. I think he had it might have been a 7 or a 7 or maybe an 8. It was an old. It definitely had the regular home button, right? So, and he was rocking that, and he's like, those people don't even care about Lightning, right? They're fine. They just plug it in. But we'll see. It's interesting to see. But yeah, there's a lot of talk behind it. So
a bit too much talk, really.
Yeah. Well, that's okay.
Joe, Sam, I don't know what you're thinking, but like you were saying, that Apple is now going after the pro users, people that are using the phones as tools for photo lens, for transferring data. Do you think in a year or two they're going to try to go to the lower end market, or will they be basically keeping that market for themselves by supporting all the devices for much longer?
Oh, well, the funny thing is, I never thought they would make a cheaper, like, entry level phone, and they did that a couple times, right, with the
Yeah,
SEs
with the
and like,
C
yeah, the
and
C and the
SE.
SE. Yeah, I honestly, if I were a betting person, I wouldn't have thought they would have tried to attack that market. I guess it really depends. It really finds out. Do they really want to try to expand in markets where a $1,500 or $1,200 device is cost prohibitive, right? I guess we'll wait and see, but I don't know. Who knows? I
I
guess
doubt it because I think
yeah.
Apple like to have a premium feel and look. That's their image. So I don't think they'll
Yeah,
go
and that
too.
5C, I didn't have a problem with the fact that the 5C was plastic. I was okay with that coming from a
Mm,
Lumia and all those kind of things. Like, but I think it didn't really. I think it really put off a lot of Apple people because I think there is something to be said for, I mean, how the devices look, right? People are spending a
mm.
lot of money. They want them to be premium, not only looking but also feeling.
Well, let's be
And
honest, they're a fashion item, aren't they, as well? Like,
well, for even just a lot of people, how many Android people do you know have, like, a case that's really, kind of extra, right? I mean, Honor's making a phone that's a foldable. It's supposed to be a purse
the
phone,
purse.
right? Yeah. I mean, I think we're to the point now where, just like anything else, like motor vehicles, right? Cars, right? They're no longer transportation for some people. They're really an extension of their personality and their. I mean, I've
Mhm.
seen a lot of cars that really have a lot of aggressive, interior design, paint jobs, those kind of things, accessory markets, right? You put floor mats and all sorts of craziness, right? Little stickers on your windows to kind of let everybody know that you're really into, like, Harry Potter, or you're writing,
Or anime.
or anime, or Naruto, or whatever, or you're a Roblox. You're right. I mean, we put those on our cars. I mean, that's the essence of a bumper sticker. I don't know if they have those in the UK. Maybe they do.
Talking of stickers,
Yeah.
there's a great place where you can get sort of like stickers for your phone.
Are you talking about like skins?
Yeah,
Make your phone look different?
skins. That's the
Yeah.
word.
Where can we go to
Go
such
to
a place?
www.extremeskins.co.uk.
Right. They do.
And what
They
do they
do a
do,
good job.
Sam?
They skin your shit. Hashtag skin your shit. I'm still waiting for them to embrace that. Don't think it's gonna happen, but
I actually want a skin that says "skin your shit."
oh, that'd be cool across the side of it, like a hashtag skin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But yeah, check them out. That's our show sponsor, and they have some new designs that have come out. Not only change the look, but actually you don't scratch up the back end, and makes it look all like, you look like a peasant, right? Because you got all your scratched up stuff, right? You get scratches and
Talking
dings
of
and dents.
scratching, let's talk at the because it's a titanium alloy.
Okay.
It might scratch quite easily
Yeah,
compared to the stainless steel, but I don't know.
I don't know, but I don't know about. It seems like, again, we're in this argument, right, about frames and backs and
Mm.
everybody's using a case, and I don't know many. And I'm curious, what do you think? Do you think there's equal amounts, Peter, of Apple users with no case to Android users with no case, or do you think it's pretty similar? I'm curious. I don't see a lot of it, but there's almost like a ground level resurgence of people kind of rocking their phones, um, a lot more uncovered or not even skinned, or anything. I mean, what do you think? Do you think it's equal, or is it more Apple people versus it, or what do you
I
think?
I oddly think that there's less people wearing cases on the iPhones, but the cases are much bigger. They're almost like a statement piece.
Hmm.
While with Android, um, there's quite a few phone makers now include the cases, the little cheap ones,
Yeah.
Right.
TPU
TPU.
in the box. And I think people are using those, but they're using those because they know that the value of the phone is dropping much more, like, drastically than a year later of an iPhone that's got like scratches and dents. But talking about the colored titanium, that really brings me back to the good HTC M8 days when they had
Yeah.
the
Mm.
anodized aluminum back, and people are like, well, if it scratches, it's just gonna like chip out. And it's like, well, we moved away from that. Like, it
Right.
actually builds a character to your phone. It ends up being yours.
Right.
Yeah, true.
But it's interesting how it's going to be with the iPhone, because we've never seen such a large sample size of people having an item like that.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I think if there were people that were sitting on 12s and 13s, I think this is really going to. I think this is gonna. I think you're gonna have. I mean, obviously, and I've made this argument before with Apple. They don't have to put out a commercial ever, right? They're done having to advertise, because by this time, if you have, I mean, even if you don't, even children know what an iPhone is, right? I mean, even kids, middle schoolers,
Oh,
right?
don't get me started.
Right.
Saoirse
Oh
calls
no.
this Saoirse calls this tablet, my Samsung tablet, an iPad.
Right. Oh.
And I'm like, no, it's not.
It's not only her. I remember when Microsoft Surfaces signed up a very expensive deal with NFL, and people on TV had to relearn how to say it's not an iPad when one of the trainers was breaking them every single game.
Right.
I can imagine.
That's probably as much like any kind of sports knowledge that I've got.
Okay.
For the whole podcast, but
that's fine. Well, that's good, because
good.
we had Ted Salmon on a little while ago, and he's not exactly a sports guy. I wouldn't say I'm a crazy sports guy. I know a lot about sport, but obviously
You're a good sport.
I'm a good sport. So and I guess the question is, so obviously you don't have exactly a Anglican name. So my curiosity real quick is, like, what's your background? I noticed you have you're in the UK, I'm assuming. So like what's the basic high level backstory of how you came to be? And you don't have to go into a lot of details if you have sensitive information, but I'm just curious.
No. Born 431 months ago in Łódź, Poland. Came to UK age 18 or 19, just after I finished high school. And originally the plan was just to stay for the summer, but 17 years later, 16 years later, and I'm still here.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, life is good.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. So was it just a finishing school and you thought, well, I could go check another country? What I guess Germany and France, and let's check the UK out and and see what happens. And I guess, so are you a full UK citizen now? And I don't know how that process works. I'm not sure.
Not yet. Never found exactly the money, because UK citizenship is the most expensive in the world. Yes, I think the full process, I mean, it's not astronomical, but I think it's around £2,500 to get through the process. Personally, with the market and how the mortgage is going, anytime we've got any extra cash, we are just putting towards that to make it easy on ourselves.
Right.
Especially that I'm not planning to run for any kind of governmental position or anything like that would stop me.
Neither am I. I decided, I'm almost 50.
I'd like to announce.
I was thinking about it, but no, I'm not.
I think, Joe, you should. You know what? It's your birthright.
Right. Absolutely. Go ahead and be an MP or something, right? I don't know what's going on. So
MVP.
yeah. So
if we learned anything, you can't be worse than a current people.
True.
At least some of them.
That's very true.
Right. Well, and that's another thing I found, because somebody had made the comment. I played golf yesterday in a bank tournament, and of course I just play. I don't care to win, because a lot of people that are really, really, really good, and I'm not very good at golf. Anyway, so we were making a comment, and they had something about there was a brief discussion about U.S. politics and stuff like that, and I said, well, I have some buddies who live in the UK, and it doesn't sound much better on the other side of the pond. Apparently, they've got that's not political issues don't seem to be just relegated to the United States. Apparently, even in the UK, they have some
different. But there are issues nonetheless, and I think all of the countries are kind of going through certain movements currently. Just a small disclosure, I actually studied political science for my bachelor's degree.
Oh, there you go.
So I'm quite interested in things like that, how people are self-organizing, how they're going through the process. And you could see that 4, 5, 6 years ago, there was a wave of populism that later died out, because people seen what was actually happening, like how power was not redistributed back to the communities that actually needed it most. But in in a lot of places it's still going on and it's picking up steam. I mean, yeah, we can go through what's happening with like labelers in France and why they're burning cars every other week, but I think it's
Right.
partially it's partially kind of the civil right as they see it. That's if things are not as they want to, they're going to the street and they're making themselves heard.
Right. Well, I mean, we've had the same thing in the United States when we had, definitely people are. It feels like maybe they're just more willing to get out and really make their voices heard. I think social media accelerates that too, but I think also a lot of people aren't just sitting behind a keyboard just letting it go. They're actually putting some action, actual going out and congregating and protesting and getting out in the street and letting their voices be heard, regardless of how you feel about what the overlying agenda is to it. It's interesting how it's definitely changed. I'm old enough to remember the Cold War, so and actively, like I remember as a kid, I think I was 14, watching the Berlin Wall fall. And I told my dad, I was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like I grew up assuming that the Eastern Bloc was a thing, the Warsaw Pact was going to be a thing forever, the Soviet Union was going to be the evil empire. I never had anything against the people of Russia. We were just, indoctrinated to believe that the Soviet Union was an evil empire. And all of a sudden you look up and here's essentially the most visible marker of that policy going, and just chunks of it getting people. I mean, it was insane. I remember watching and thinking, this is insane. Like I remember watching it real time live. So it's kind of funny how, history has a tendency of, people think now that, interest rates are high and they're going up, but it's like, in the late 70s, it was nothing to have a 14% interest rate on a house. That was normal, right? So we're kind of back to it. But anyway, enough of that talk for right now, because I know Joe's getting he's going to sleep on us. But I find it fascinating.
Joe, because of Berlin Wall and how Europe was divided, we ended up with Mighty Ducks 2 having Iceland as the buddies instead of Russians.
There you go. See? How do you know that? Also, weird, fun fact, and I think you're going to appreciate this. So, I had a friend that I used to work with, and he was from Poland, and he never talked about how he got out, because he did get out he came to the United States during when Poland was under communism or whatever. And I remember he used to come to work all the time. We have a little control room, had a computer, and every morning he would come in, have his coffee, he would sit at the computer, and he would go to read, because he couldn't get the physical paper anymore, Nazjednik. Every morning he would go there and he would read it. And I don't know what it is about Polish language, but man, I try to look at the screen, I'm like, man, I know you can understand everything. I understand it, but it looks extraordinarily difficult, especially in the pronunciation. It's very, so I would come in and say, his name was Romwald. I said, hey, Romwald, what are you doing? He's like, you know what I'm doing. I'm reading Nazjednik. And then so I got to good, and I just sit there and, oh yeah. He goes, so he had Nazjednik. And I think that's the national, I don't know. He didn't make it sound, but I don't know if they still do that. Do you know what I'm talking about? I hope that's still a thing. I hope I'm saying it correctly. It's hard to pronounce Polish words correctly.
So the word that I would get out of what you're saying, it's dziennik, which is like a daily, basically. The N is slightly tweaking me. I'm thinking maybe it's some kind of northern Polish newspaper or something like that they would have.
Yeah, it was just online. Again, this is a long time ago, so this wasn't the current situation. And I didn't know if it was, it looked like they were regular news articles, so it almost it had a USA Today kind of vibe to it, but I wasn't sure. I don't think it was Daily Mail. I don't know. He never really asked. I just remember watching him read it, and I was like, he goes, look, can you see words? I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of words, but I can't read any of that stuff, man. And he would start to read through it, and I said, can you just read the sentences out loud so I could just hear it? And I always found Polish to be I like listening to it being spoken, even though I'm like, I think Mandarin is probably harder, I think, because it doesn't have actual letters, right? It's characters, but I think Polish is hard. It looks hard to me.
Yeah, it's definitely hard.
It's not an easy language, I can say. I mean, I'm dyslexic, so that was challenging at one point. But also, for people not who haven't grew up with the language. So I'm from the city that's got only 4 letters in its name, but 3 of them don't exist in English. So that's the fun part. It's LODZ for anyone that's interested.
Is it lots? Is that how you
so it's lots in English, but in Polish it would be łódź.
Oh, jeez, yeah. Oh, God. Yeah.
Because L's got an accent, O's got an accent, Z's got an accent, and D as usual.
Yeah, and I watched a girl on TikTok. Here's the words in Polish, and you say them like you think you'd say them, and then I'll actually say what they actually sound like, and she would have it. I was like, okay, that's it. I can't. There's no way. I'm done. There's not a chance in hell I'm ever going to figure that out.
I've got that with the cities in the UK. You look at some of them, and it's like, how do you do that? Like, half of those like letters don't get a sound in the end. Like,
yeah. Like, well, that's when remember when I had the show, the Across the Podcast, I kept saying Derby because that's what it looks like. And he used to yell at me, it's Derby. I'm like, I don't know, it's DERB. And in English, the way I read it, it's Derby, like a hat, right? He's like, no, he used to give me crap all the time.
Rules are thrown out sometimes.
Right. Leicester, yeah. Yeah, it's like, yeah. And then the funny thing, there is an American equivalent to that. So of course, it's probably, play on the UK. But in Boston, they have a lot of city names and township names that you look at it and it's like, what? It's like, it's Situate. It's like, it's not spelled that, right? So, Worcestershire, the wash your sister sauce. Is that how it is? Yeah, it is?
That's Worcester.
Yeah, Worcester. Yeah. So anyway, so I guess Sam, we're getting close to October. Oh, go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
Did you know this gentleman here is a Snapdragon insider?
I was going to ask about that. So, like, how? I guess first is how would you do that, and second of all, what are the benefits of it, and can you kind of explain what a Snapdragon Insider is, and what do you do, and how do you kind of just talk about it in general? Because I always hear about it, but I'm actually talking to one, so I'm just curious more about the program and how that all works. I mean, if you can kind of explain, that'd be great.
Sure. I mean, I can do my best shot at it. So the easiest way of saying is like, anyone who's like interested in technology and wants to sign up to a newsletter can be a Snapdragon Insider. Okay. That's the top line. On top of that, there's so many other things that you can get yourself involved. There's quite I would say intensive, but it's not. It's as much as you want to put into it. There's a Discord that I'm spending probably way too much time at, and just sending gifts to people just to put the conversation to more random kind of trajectory.
I love it. Random.
Yeah, I think so. Like, our lives are not whimsical enough. Let's send something weird to someone. Absolutely, today.
Definitely.
Right.
Then on social media, there are photo kind of competitions, but there's no big rewards to anyone except like end of the month shout outs to the most interesting photos that people who are working actually on the community are selecting. I mean, I was lucky enough that through some of the posts I got noticed, and last year I was sent to Hawaii to actually see when Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 was announced. Okay. I was lucky enough that early this year, my football skills, and I'm saying skills very loosely here, took me to San Diego to see Manchester United and Wrexham FC playing at Snapdragon Stadium. So there's a lot of things that people get involved, but I'm finding it's more of a good place to speak with people about things that are interesting you. I'm not probably selling it very well, but
it's fine. But like I said, but you don't just talk about Snapdragon, right? I guess that's the catalyst for the community. But I guess those conversations about tech can kind of spawn into any other kinds of displays and other processors and just tech in general, right?
Yes, I think. I mean, me personally, I talk about anything with anyone. I'm finding it interesting. Technology is it's very hard for me to just enclose it for one company. I know that there are fanboys for Apple, for Sony, for Samsung, but the wider your net is, kind of to catch all of those interests that are yours, the more you're going to learn and the more you're taking actually from it.
Agreed. Absolutely. Like I said, that's why we try to hear that we're not. I mean, clearly, me and Joe are both, definitely fans of the Android platform, and we do talk about it. But we try to, and I hate using the word because it's become now almost kind of a buzzword, but like inclusive. I don't care what you decide to do. If you're into Samsung or Sony or Apple, or if you're a big fan of, and there are probably 12 of them. There are people that are probably like the old Samsung Exynos chips, right? I'm sure there's probably somebody that thought they were okay. I don't know. There's might be a handful, but we don't. Again, however that conversation about tech is generated, I like to listen to people's passions about, like, well, why are you into Apple? Like, can you ever see yourself? And it's funny watching their reactions. Like, even the other day, I was playing golf. I had opened up my phone to do something, and the guy next to me goes, "Oh, is that one of those folds?" And he had an iPhone, of course, and a real nice one too. And he's like, I said, yeah, I'm an Android guy, but I have an iPhone for work. And we kind of got talking about it. He's like, I could never use an Android because of his workflow, right? He's got a business and he's in the ecosystem. And we just kind of had maybe a 2 or 3 minute conversation about it. And it was clearly obvious. He doesn't like Android. It doesn't work for his workflow. And he can't see himself switching because there's no reason to. And he wasn't being disingenuous about me using it. He actually seemed to be quite fascinated by, like, oh, do you use that? Like, I see you opening it up. And with me, I'm a different user. I'm on the main screen almost all the time, and not because it's small. I've been programmed by the Duo, right? So I've got this available. And it was an interesting conversation. So we had just a real kind of quick conversation about it, tech, and that's what I like. And you've probably been in conversations where they really kind of get deep dives and people really get kind of, in depth. And then the only thing I worse is you can always tell when it's switching to levels of kind of fanboyism, or they're defending the castle, right? Like, well, I don't, and you got to kind of walk that around, right? It's very quick because some people are triggered a lot more easy than others. How do you find yourself navigating those conversations, especially if they start to get a little chippy, I guess is the best way to describe it.
My wife is saying that I'm an awful person to have conversations with because I'm quite often trying to have the 2 points of view and kind of understand them.
Right.
So although I am like on the Discord with other Snapdragon insiders and we're talking about a new phone that is being announced, I quite often used to say that, for example, I think the 600 and below series by Qualcomm were like kind of left for quite a few years. And that's where like the average person, in my opinion, should live. Like, no one should feel like they need to go and get the Galaxy S23 Ultra or I don't know, Huawei P60 Pro to do the daily tasks. It should be a phone that it's just there for you when you need it and it's doing things well enough. So when MediaTek was bringing up last year quite a lot of heat, I was like, you know what, guys, like that's good for everyone because it's gonna push the companies that possibly stopped really looking at that because they thought they've got it worked out and make it so much better for all of us. Because there's this thing that is trickling from the most expensive phones to the cheapest. But we need sometimes those accelerators. We need the other company to be there waiting in the shadows saying, like, if you're not particularly happy with this, we've got something for you that can be as good, but it's cheaper. And it's just like, competition is always good.
Yeah.
But then again, the other day, there was a conversation about why high-end games are not coming to Android. And I think it's not because the chips are not capable of it. It's more of a iOS got the history of delivering much higher returns per user. I mean, the average number of apps that average Android user is downloading every single month is 0. Because once you're going to set up the phone, you really rarely go and like look for new things. And that's why I see no Resident Evil 4, for example, coming to Android. It is possible, but it will require kind of change of a mentality, not only on user perspective, but also on people that are creating it.
What are you doing, Joe? Are you having a moment?
No, I was just reading.
I'm listening to Piotr because
comment.
it's such a great, and like I said, and I agree. Like, and MediaTek seems like they are bringing quality,
Very good.
chipsets. I mean, they're bringing, and I think people like it. I guarantee. I know there's developers and R&D people and executives at the Snapdragon camp. They're like, oh man, hey, like it's kind of like every they've got to step up their game because if they're the only game in town, I don't think there's a way to stay on top of it and not be complacent if you don't have another company or a set of companies pushing that and driving that innovation. It's very hard for you to be in that space to be a self-motivator and a self-innovator, right? You've got to see there has to be other forces pushing that. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I'm pretty impressed with the new Apple chipset. It's a 3-nanometer process.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that. I was like, oh.
Now, you see a lot more of that, though.
You can make the argument because they're, it's homegrown, it's their own, they don't control it all, right? It's a lot easier. But that just means that, like, I think in that case, I think for people like at Snapdragon and the MediaTek people, I think they have a challenge because they got to hit both markets, right? They have to have their flagship, right, high end, but then they got to hit that 700, 600 series chipsets and really find that balance in power and performance, but also try to hit a price point, right? You don't, I have no problem with, the 7 series chipsets. I've used Snapdragon's chips on other devices and even MediaTek, and they're, for what you can do, like I said, just to get your daily tasks. I think a lot of people, to Juan's point, always make that argument about over purchasing compute power, right? You're really over purchasing it for really what you're trying to do.
Oh yeah. Most people over purchase big time.
Right. And like I said, I mean, it'd be nice, but but me, I'd be willing to look at like a fold device that was maybe running a 7 series Snapdragon and maybe didn't, you know what I mean? A more of a, I guess a light, like right, like a fold light, or what there was a description or a thought about the Duo having a Duo light, like a plastic build that came in at like $750, $800, right? It was a Duo 2 light essentially, right? Different materials, a little less processing power for people who wanted to get into the platform but didn't want to have to spend the astronomical amount of money to overbuy compute power. But it seemed like it never happened. And my question is, do you have any thoughts on why that doesn't happen generally? Is it because, I know in Duo's case, I think it's just because of Microsoft, right? I think it's just, but the light phones, do you think that they're, I mean, not like the 7As and the Huawei, the Mi Mix lights, right? Those kinds of phones. Yeah. Do you think they get a lot of traction, or is it just, are they making them just to hit a market to, it's more of a thought experiment and not really a functional hope to drive sales?
It's something that I believe a lot of companies are creating to have a range of products with different price points. But the idea is that the most expensive one is the one that we're always driving the customer towards. I'm working as a merchandiser, so I kind of understand the good, better, best. But even with Apple now, we've got 4 separate phones that are kind of building up. And I think outside of the base model and the most expensive model, the other two, I'm still not 100% sure where they should lie. What is the target customer for those? I think, for example, there was a really nice phone, really interesting phone a few months ago. I think it was Xiaomi Mi 13 Lite, which had 2 selfie cameras. It had quite an interesting design, different to other phones from that series. And it had, I think, the Snapdragon 7 series or 6 series. It was one of the launch models for that. And I think that phone was a disservice to call it a light, because it was fully realized idea, but they needed to put it somewhere in the range, and they put a light name into it. And that kind of drove people away from it, thinking that it's got some shortcomings. Well, I think the phone itself was great as it was.
Yeah, I was just while we were talking about it, I just happened to go there.
Yeah, that's a good chipset.
Yeah. I mean, and it's, in this phone, it's 6.55. You got a 1080p, which I think is still a 7 Gen 1. A 7 Gen 1 with 8 gigs RAM, but it's not a battery that's at 4,500 milliamps, right? And I think, they're talking about a 67 wire charging.
7 series.
That, I think, and especially, and they're saying here, and they always give such a great website, by the way, but they're looking at a 128 gig right now at 339 on Amazon right now. That's, I mean, say what you will about, maybe you're not a big fan of the Xiaomi OS, right? A lot of people talk about that, but as far as a phone and capability and hardware and software, man, that could really serve a lot of Android users very, very well.
So going back to the competition thing, I think Xiaomi are really starting to push boundaries, which is good, and that's what's needed. Because when Huawei lost Google services, at that point they were really pushing Samsung and Apple actually. Huawei were doing very, very well, and when that competition went, I think Samsung got a bit slack for a little while. So it's great to see. Xiaomi
they definitely had that. Remember, they had that competition vacuum, right? That comes in where Samsung's like, okay, well, hey, Huawei is really on nipping at our heels. Well, they're gone. Now we can kind of maybe we can kind of take off the accelerator, right, and kind of keep our development. But there's a question here from Shark, and thankfully Shark's in the chat. Thanks for showing up always, and everybody in the chat, by the way. Thanks for always coming in. We love you guys coming in here. But there's a question for you. What are your thoughts, if any, about the ARM IPO, especially given Apple's recent 20-year commitment to their chips? So he had a finance angle to the chip discussion. Of course, Shark is our resident finance expert. He is the man of all things money. He's a very, very great guest and a supporter of the show, and I love talking to him. He's great. So what do you think about that? Any thoughts about the ARM?
I always have thoughts about things. So
good.
with ARM as a business and how it's held today, and I think it's still the Japanese investing company that is owner. How they're called? They used to own WeWork as well. Okay. It's just on tip of my tongue. It's going to come to me at some point. They, in my opinion, they want to get out of that business. They put it in, I think, 7 or 8 years ago. They want to cash in, get those money, starting reinvesting, seeing how things are currently. There's a lot of businesses that are going into SoftBank. Thank you so much, Chuck. There's a lot of companies that are pre-IPO, but already are making moves into going IPO later this year. How that would work with ARM when ARM was denied being purchased by NVIDIA last year or 2 years ago, I don't exactly know, because there's so much. They're carrying so much of technology backbone internationally that a lot of countries are seeing it as, if one entity going to own it from now on, it will be a risk to themselves. I know there used to be some talks between Samsung would buy 20% of shares, LG would invest 10% of the shares, Apple would buy some, but then is it truly leaving it on open market if you don't have that idea that there can be a business that's going to just basically say, you know what, guys, we think that there's plenty of money left in this business. You need some accelerator. We're going to buy and do a takeover, and we want to see that returns later. It wouldn't be a real IPO, and I don't know how would it be taken by multiple governments.
Right. So you don't worry about, I would say, based on the way the EU kind of does regulations and they're really consumer, I would make the argument in some cases they may be consumer aggressive at some point, but they really are definitely trying to take care of that. It wouldn't be American regulators that probably would do it. I would think that would be more of an EU kind of really focusing on that IPO and making sure that all the ducks financially are in a row, right? And it definitely isn't going to be at the expense of a consumer at the end of the day.
So ARM is a British company, from what I remember. A in ARM stands for Acorn, the people that used to make BBC computers. If Joe had those in his primary school ever.
I remember Acorn, yeah.
Yeah. So they actually were part of that business. They, I think it's Acorn Risk. I don't remember, but there's some kind of lineage between those, and I can't see where UK would kind of give it into the open market. They're seeing it as the only large technology company that's pretty much left here. With all of the things, ARM is very important to so many countries, and giving leaving it to open market, it would be a vulnerability and leave a lot of companies exposed.
It's a pretty interesting article there, since we were talking about it. Shares the AI chip are 25% after a largest IPO in nearly 2 years. Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot, and I think that's a lot of things too that we don't. And now, to be fair, this is basically a self-actualization. I don't really understand a lot of the financials behind all this, and that's, at the end of the day, really what this comes down to. Because remember, they are companies that are providing services and software and hardware and those kind of things. But at the end of the day, they have to be profitable, and they have to have a way to generate money because they have to, in order to provide these services and technology to us, they have to be viable, right? And they have to, and there's different ways of achieving viability in the marketplace, right? Also, they're trying to do it across many different companies, right? China as opposed to EU, as opposed to the United States, as opposed to South America, or those kind of countries, right? Or near Asia. So it's interesting how we make it sound like because we're on the outside and the periphery as consumers, we always like to conceptualize how we really think a lot of these things go. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of factors that have to be dealt with, and they don't always have the best information or even accurate information. They have to kind of go with best knowledge, right? And so I think sometimes consumers can be a little bit unfair to these larger companies and kind of say, well, how come they just don't do it this way, this way, this way? I'm like, there are a lot more forces at work that you're just not aware of. And even just the discussion, which is high level, look how much is going on with this IPO and how much I just really am not aware of. And so,
I mean, yeah. Let's put it this way: if Arm is a private company, there would be an interest to make as much money as possible to have it on your quarterly results. There possibly would be some pushes internally because the quarter wasn't that good, that maybe you should sell something to Huawei, some of the designs of the chips, and make it available to them, because they were not exactly listed as prohibited by US, by UK, by EU. But at the same time, is it in the spirit of the law that was passed? I'm still looking for as much details about the new Kirin 9000 processor that was announced. Well,
yeah, I was going to ask you about that with Huawei coming in. That kind of, I think that really caught a lot of people, which is funny. I think it caught them off guard. But my question would be, why would you think that Huawei would just basically sit back and just say, okay, well, I guess we're just going to take our ball and go home? Did you honestly think Huawei as a company was just going to kind of just say, well, the United States put us on the entity list, so we're just going to go ahead and just pack it up and go home? I assume that Huawei was going to, oh yeah. I mean,
they made brilliant phones. I mean, I've got here P40 Pro Plus, which basically was one of the first phones that just gave up and was adding every acronym to the end of the phone as possible. But this phone is absolutely phenomenal. If it wouldn't be stuck on Android 10 and wouldn't be just getting apps to work properly on it, such a hard job, I would love to have it in my pocket.
I'm a huge Huawei fan. Honestly.
I'll tell you right now, I made this comment to somebody the other day, in full disclosure. I said, if I could get a Huawei phone to work on AT&T, I don't care about the apps. I don't care about app gallery. Doesn't matter. I would use a Huawei P60 Pro in a nanosecond, and I would just use that phone. It really does. And not even. I mean, in the whatever. And I've had these arguments. I still have my Huawei watch, and I still like it a lot. And I had my P30, and so my dog chewed it and cracked the screen. Which is funny because that P30 ironically worked on AT&T flawlessly, and it wasn't certified in their network. And I put my SIM in it. I didn't even get a text message from AT&T, hey, this phone isn't supported, and yet it worked flawlessly. I think I had an anomaly, but I am a huge fan of Huawei's hardware and software shops. I love their devices, and it putting them on the entity list. I understand why the United States government did it. I don't agree with necessarily all the thinking behind it, but I love Huawei phones. I always have. I've always been a huge fan.
I mean, I need to say Oppo kind of filled in that gap for me. I'm using currently Oppo X5 Pro for the past year. It's absolutely great phone.
Fantastic phone.
It's it's still ceramic on the back. The lenses are good on it. I would prefer that if it would be, instead of ×2 zoom, it would be ×3 or 5, something slightly longer. Right. Just to give you this further reach. but it's an absolutely amazing company. I've got as well N2 Flip, because everyone deserves a flippy dippy in their life.
That's right, man. I had to get rid of the flippy dippy to get the fold, and while I'm happy with my fold, I missed the flippy dippy. I just, it sucks.
It's just so fun to like end up your call by like slamming it close.
Yeah,
it's such a power move.
Right. It's just like the old days. Like you can't really, you hang up on somebody, you're like, okay, fine. Yeah, it doesn't land the same. It doesn't have the same feeling as opposed to going, you know what? Fine, you're a jerk face. Click and just kind of slam the thing shut. Yeah, I did. I really like
face.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm trying to be happy. I didn't. But
I think in the UK, what we would use would have to be bleeped out.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And like I said, and I agree with Shark. Flippy dippy for the win. I loved having that flip fold. I had the Flip 4. It was a great device, and it was the same thing. It's like whenever I use a standard, I still have my OnePlus 10 Pro, and I like it. But whenever I have either my fold out or I have the flip out, it always generates a conversation with somebody because somebody goes, oh, and what's funny? It's almost always an Apple user. It's never a Samsung or it's never an Android person. They're kind of like, oh yeah, so what? I've heard of it, right? Even if they have it, it doesn't bother them. But it's always an Apple user going, oh, I've seen commercials for those. How do you like that? And then again, we get into that conversation, which I really enjoy. That's a lot of the reason why I like having different form factors. Because again, to your point, Peter, it kind of makes those conversations start to generate, and then you can have those kind of high level or just
exciting,
it's a great phone, especially when you can talk like this is the reason why I like it. And especially when I show them like you have you can open up app pairs and like have two apps at the same time. They're like, wow, that's incredible. And then you have your S Pen on the back where you could really, people don't even think about using a phone in that way, which is kind of always a good conversation starter, I think.
I also think it's a shame that in US and Canada overall, there's not that much competition, even on the Android space. I think in Europe, we're so, it's so good for us that we've got Realme's, Xiaomi's, Oppo's,
Honor,
Sony.
You get a Sony at the store. You can walk into your carrier like an O2 carrier or and just get your Sony. Yeah, it's like I'm so jealous. It drives me crazy.
But also, I don't know. I think in US the cheapest the plans that I've seen are like $15 a month. Mm-hmm. I'm paying £8 for mine, and I've got pretty much unlimited data because I never run out of it. And it's just one of those things. Like if you're gonna uncouple yourself from this monthly bill, there's like £60 because you want to have the newest iPhone. Suddenly you're realizing you've got more money in your bank account monthly, and if you're gonna start putting it into like pods or whatever your bank is doing, once a year you can treat yourself for a new phone. It can be a new Samsung, it can be an Oppo. You can take chances. Signing up a contract for 2 to 3 years, I think it's weird, actually.
See, my problem is I like to change my phone more than once a year.
Yeah, I mean we all have those kind of problems, but there's medication available.
Yeah. I should seek it out. I surely should.
We should have an intervention for you, Joe, to help you with your phone problem.
You're the same, Sam. Come on.
Yeah. See, I embrace it, and like I said, if Piotr would have said it to me, I'd be like, that's I mean,
just quickly going back to Acorn. I love this line I found on Wikipedia. Acorn is sometimes referred to as the British Apple.
Okay. Yeah, that's. I don't know if they really
just imagine we was holding Acorn phones now. That could have been.
Right.
I mean, they're Pine phones.
Right. And I agree with Aditya. There is CBT, and we could all use a bit of that. I would agree. Aditya. Always coming in hot. And also, Lenny was able to stop by. And I know, hey, you know what? It's okay, sir. Even if you're late, it's okay. And speaking of that, hey, man, Joe, we're on the Purposely Pixel YouTube channel. You should check that out.
You should
also,
really, yeah.
Also, Joe, did you do some work for the Purposely Pixel channel that you would like to talk about?
Finally, yeah, I've done a video recently. It's
terrible. Hey, you know what? Here's the thing. What they always tell you, right? Hey, mate, you never score goals on the shots you don't take, right? So it's okay, man.
I took a shot. It hit the post.
Yeah, crossbar. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's crossbar. So it's okay. So yeah, check out Joe's work on the Purposely Pixel channel. Also, Lenny does a great work over there. We got the Pixel 8s are coming out now, so there's going to be tons of coverage on there. Not only just about the phones, but Lenny does a great job with accessories and cases and everything else. So check it out. They've been a gracious host, and we appreciate them letting us, kind of, I guess, ride sidecar to their channel. Really check it out. I mean, the sub count really doesn't tell you what really is going on. Lenny and the team over there do great work in channel.
Yeah,
Lenny
works hard because he's a postman during the
day. Right. And then also, too, he's got the Pixel thing going on. So check him out, the Purposely Pixel YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that. Not only will you get, you can see these streams. I don't know why you would want to watch them later on. Maybe because you enjoy it, at least for Peter. Watch for him
on Twitter as well.
Hit him up.
Good fun.
Yeah, he's absolutely. So, check it out. The Purposely Pixel YouTube channel. That's always a good group of guys over there that really do good work. And I'm proud, Joe. You did something.
I've got a question about it, Joe. Did you go on holidays to Turkey as a tax write-off because you had to do it?
I wish.
Joe was like,
a lot of money.
Oh shit, that was a good idea. I should have done that next time you do that.
Yeah, I'll send my bill to Soundcore later. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I don't know if you can expense it, but you can definitely take it as a write-off.
I wish I could.
Well, and I know, and Shark can check me on this, but I had a buddy, and he used to do this all the time. So he would go on vacation. And he made sure that whenever he went on vacation, he always applied for a job in the market in which he was visiting. So he would go to Colorado and he would apply for the job he already had, and he would take that as a business write-off. He would basically take that because he actually applied for a job, had some interest. He would say that he was doing it to basically further his career, and he would submit that to the IRS as a tax write-off. He'd write off the travel, the lodging, all of it. And I don't know if that's really true.
He bought a new suit every time.
No, it's totally legit, man. U.S. tax code's a goddamn nightmare, man. It's like a billion pages, and it's like, I just like the fact that I thought it was kind of funny when Trump's like, yeah, I use a tax code. You know what? You don't like me using the rule? Change the shit. But until then, she does it and I do it, and I'll tell you straight to your face, I use the U.S. tax code to my advantage like everybody else does, but I got enough balls to tell you that I'm doing it. I'm like,
if you know the loopholes, why aren't you not using it?
Well, I know there's a whole career field in the United States for tax accountants to find shelters and ways around it. The U.S. tax code is extremely complicated. I don't know anything about it, but I agree with you. Should check it out if you're going to go there next time and do some work in the field. You might want to try to write that off a little bit. I think you need to talk to him.
Soundcore will never send me a product again, but
no. But
it was great.
Yeah, I think you just went to Turkey, but actually you had been there before, right? I think before you had Sersha, you guys had been there before.
Yeah. I used to go to Turkey a lot. In fact, we were supposed to go last year. We moved this holiday over because of COVID was still a thing. Sersha was only 2, so we moved it over a year.
Right. So, Peter, have you been back to Poland? Did you still have family back there? Do you visit occasionally, or just like, you know what? I lived there for 18 years. I saw what I needed to see. There's really nothing to go back for. Like, I'm curious, the travel to the European Union. Well, I know, but then the European Union travel seems across Europe to be pretty efficient, right? You got trains, you got buses, I mean, do you go back occasionally, or does that not really a thing for you?
I don't go as often as I probably should, but that's purely because there's so many places around the world that I haven't been yet. So earlier this year, for example, we went to Georgia and Armenia, but anytime I say Georgia, Americans are like, "Oh, so how did you like it?" Is that
it's not Atlanta, Georgia? No, it's the country, Georgia, not the state of Georgia. Yeah, I knew you meant that exactly. Yeah,
yeah, and it's absolutely amazing. Yeah, that kind of COVID went away. We went to Turkey. Well, we went a lot of places. I can send you a list later, but. We went, for example, into the mountains that only later we realized that it's like 10 kilometers away from what is disputed territory between Georgia and Russia, because Russia invaded them like 10 years ago. So that was interesting.
That gets a little dicey. You got to be careful. I don't know. Russia's a little weird about their borders with people. They get a little chippy about that kind of stuff.
It's very interesting if you would go to Georgia, the country, although it's further than Turkey, and in school you were taught that that's Asia, it's so European that if you'd be dropped there, you could think that maybe it's Hungary, Czech Republic.
Yeah, it's very European.
It's very European, very pro-EU, and there's an amazing support to like what's happening in Ukraine, for example, now, because they're seeing it as Russia was left unchecked for so long, and it's doing it to more than just them. And they, I think, are putting their hopes on that if Ukraine going to go as it should, that Ukrainian people are left alone to themselves, maybe they can recover the areas that were taken from them too.
Yeah, like I said, I actually, to be honest with you, after watching my buddy, I like to go to Poland. I heard it's a really beautiful. There's a lot of beautiful areas in there. I like cold weather, so I'm okay. Even if it gets cold, I'm okay with that. But I'd like to get to Europe at some point, and I just go to the UK and obviously visit Joe and all that. But
I recommend Krakow. It was very
good. It looks great, and I'm all big. I like the food too, so that's another draw for me. I love any kind of food anywhere I go. Right, no matter if it's in Asia or whatever. I love all sorts of different. I'm not your typical American. I'm very much into other countries' cuisines and foods and cultures. I think
Polish beer is quite good, Sam.
Well, that could get in trouble. I'll just sit in a chair outside my little hotel and just be sitting there enjoying. You got more? Just keep the beers coming. That's okay. I can have a couple of pints.
I mean, Poland is not as cheap as it used to be. Anytime I go, I kind of realize that, like, you know what? The things have moved on. But recently, I was kind of reading, and outside of, if we can kind of push away China to the side, because their growth is so amazing for the past 30 years. Mm-hmm. Poland is in the next top 5 countries in the GDP growth per capita in the 30 years. So the life kind of expectancy, your earnings really moved ahead. There's so many things that we still do absolutely awfully, and politics is one of them. But if I see it as at least a progress, like we're not sitting, and there's so many young Polish people as well that are coming back now to Poland because they had the working lives. They started like in different countries. They learned from that, and now they're going to be like starting bring all those things to Poland.
Well, it sounds like in order for that to happen, there has to be opportunities, economic and cultural and professional, right, to go back to Poland for, right? If you go back there and there isn't really anything to kind of come back for, that shows that at least it's starting to kind of, I guess, as it were, right? It's more expensive, but in that expense comes the forward progress of, all the things that they need to do to be, a good society. Like I said, I've always been fascinated by just Europe in general and Eastern Europe especially because growing up, we were told that Poland and all this, they were under Soviet rule, and it's just an extension of the Soviet empire, right? And so, but then you see it's like, no, it's very much after they all started to fall and kind of become independent republics again, how when you get a little older and you start to kind of realize there's a lot more of a power and political dynamic there that you weren't aware of because you're an American and you're so far isolated. Then you're like, wow, man, there's like a lot, like Romania and the Czech Republic and Poland and all these countries are just like, wow,
it's so fun. Awesome. And it's there's a few really fun games that you can play through Eastern Europe as well. So most of the Eastern Bloc countries have normally like a statue that is called Mother of, and it's the name of the country that you're in. So there's Mother Georgia, there's Mother Armenia, and it's mostly women with like a shield and a sword or something kind of to scare off the people that would try to invade you.
Right.
And you can literally go through all of those and like, yeah, I've seen this one, I've seen this one, I've seen this one, and just like tick them off. And similarly, when USSR existed, they had this one blueprint of a building that almost looks like a 30 Rock in New York.
Right.
And they were just plonking it in every single capital city. And you can go from capital to capital and see like, yeah, that one looks exactly the same, like the one that I've seen earlier.
And like the Volga, right? The car, right? The Volga, it was that ubiquitous white Volga that was everywhere. And it's like, yep, you knew all. Yeah. It's funny how architecture, even the same, has that same kind of like, That one, you know. If you know, you know, right?
but it's a lot of fun seeing how they moved with the times, and it's like where on which floor you've got now the restaurants. Do you have like is it a share space, workspaces, or is it some kind of like TV station that took over?
Right.
It's
How
all a lot of
how
fun.
they've repurposed the area into something that's more useful for
gentrification.
Yeah. Well, Joe, holy cow, man! It's already been an hour and 10 minutes, man.
Yep, it's gone really quickly.
Well, that's
Joe,
that's
when
because
we miss a week. We always yeah.
Well, also having just a fantastic guest on, and like I said, we would love and just so we talked about this before, so I think I'll go ahead and tell the viewers because I just confirmed today. So all things are going good. That we'll have TK Bay on October 1st. We want to make that the first show of the new season. We're going to kind of just start to kind of dial back as far as
having the season finale. Then
we actually technically have a show on the 24th, but you know what? We may not.
Technically, there was one last week,
right? And it would just be Joe and I. So you would be the last guest of the season. So yes, you're the finale of having a guest. Right.
Made it.
Right. Yes. And so what we're trying to do is, and of course we would never, obviously, anybody who would like to come on the show and talk to us. So that's obviously a thing. But we're trying to look at more having just a rotating group of guests, the people that come in and that kind of thing. So we would love, again, obviously we love having you on, and please never hesitate to come back on. If Sunday nights are a good time frame for you to come back on, we'd like to maybe have you come in and talk radio, because this has been a fascinating conversation, and you seem to be extremely knowledgeable about a lot of things, and just a good conversation. So we really appreciate you coming in. And hey, the doors are always open for return visits if that would work for you.
No, thank you so much. I definitely can make myself available at even on a short notice if you're going to need to. Especially that I didn't manage to ask, like, Sam, what's in your drawer?
Oh, I don't have. What's funny is now I have a desk. I bought one at IKEA, or I don't know how you say it in Finland or Sweden or wherever it is, but it's a bamboo top with just adjustable legs. It has no drawers, so I took all my stuff.
What?
Well, it's just a tabletop. I bought it cheap because so I don't know. I gave the desk. So I have drawers down here. Well, let's find out. Hold on. I got to go down. It's down here. So let's find out. So let's go.
While Sam's doing that, Peter, tell everyone where they can find you on Twitter.
So on Twitter, I'm under my full name, PIOTRBARTKOWIK. The easiest way is probably to take the screenshot and check it out there. I'm pretty much on all of the social media under that handle.
Okay.
I'm not posting as much as before because I'm taking a little break.
Okay.
It's actually quite healthy to like step away from your phone sometimes.
A little disconnection just to kind of mentally reset, because that's
just a month. Just trying to open Twitter once a day, and that's kind of it for me.
Okay, you mean X?
I refuse.
Yeah, so we got my Chicago Bears mug. This is where my pens go now. And then also eyeglass cleaner, because 2 times 2, you never have enough. So we're transitioning to AWS cloud services. So I'm studying for this.
Okay.
Kind of a pain in the ass, a lot of terms. It's just stupid. Amazon has services for everything. It's really kind of insane. So that's that. Mom, obviously. So let's see. I got this. This is kind of cool. So it's kind of, I forgot where I got this from, but it's basically it's kind of like it's kind of like old school holster kind of thing, but you can put your phone in it. It's like a phone case, but it's got a little thing for credit cards and stuff. It's kind of cool. Problem is I always had big phones, like the Duo didn't fit in here, so it didn't really work. But I got this. It's been pretty nice. So let's see what else. Assorted knee braces, because Nope.
How is your knee?
It's still a little swollen, but it actually works pretty. I actually ran the other day, jogging. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I didn't fall, or it doesn't hurt, so it's kind of cool. So cool, I got that. A mouse, 1, 2, because and then my Logitech, because I got mice. I don't know what this is. Who knows? Nothing in here. It's just an empty box.
Just an empty box.
I don't want to keep that shirt up. Various cables.
Standard.
Hold on. Jesus Christ. Controller for it's a Logitech controller. Maybe PlayStation? I don't know. I never even used it here. Okay, and more cables. Drawer 2. Oh yeah, check it out. N95s, right? Because that's a thing. I've got and these are the good ones too. Like these are the N95 ones, man. Aditya, you can appreciate these, right? I only have a few. I got a metric fuck ton of them. So that N95s, my Xbox Elite controller. I kept the box. It came with a little, dude. You talk about a controller that's got way too many buttons and levers and shit. It's nuts, man. That's way too much. What else we got here? Oh, God, man, more N95s. And
what have you done?
I've lost my mind. And then this is my daughter's actually. In the United States, we used to get these as a kid, physical fitness awards. So you used to be able, if you had a physical fitness, you could get a little certificate. The president they wanted American kids not to be fat and lazy. So that was a thing. 2012, 13, something like that.
That's a bummer. Premiership.
I don't know what this is. This is a mouse pad. Godzilla, the card game. I don't know where this comes from. I guess
I need to say I actually really enjoy the Godzilla movies for what they are.
Oh,
they are
Godzilla movies are great. Oh yeah, Mothra and Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah.
Another mouse. This one's cabled though. This is my old Microsoft mouse. Okay, what else we got? Oh, the bands for my smartwatch. This is where I bought the Milanese. But there's another band in here for my Huawei watch, and so I got that. And
the GT4 looks good,
dude. I want to get one. I guess I have to get one in the UK, but I don't. Is there a good retail site in the UK to buy one of those? Because
you can get it from Huawei directly in UK.
I tried Amazon. They don't. I guess it doesn't come out till October 5th?
6th. I don't know, but in UK, if you buy it through Huawei official website, I think you're getting as well some of the wireless headphones, and there's a 15% off. So it comes just under £300, I believe. And for what you're getting,
really good deals normally.
I guess my question is, for an American, is that something I can do, or I don't know how I'm able to pull that off? Because I would be interested in the GT4. I think it looks really good.
Yeah, it's a good watch.
But
I
mean.
They always look real smart, their watches, and the battery life as well.
Right.
Oh, I'm using GT2, and that's got like 10 days battery life still after 4 or 5 years of use.
Oh man, that's awesome.
So,
Watch 6 Classic doesn't have.
So that's what's in my drawers. Yeah. So I still have technically drawers, but yeah, in my desk I don't have drawers. I usually, according to Lenny, I don't usually wear drawers.
Peter, have you got any drawers?
No.
No, but I kind of brought a selection of phones with me, just if we would be talking about anything.
Oh man, look at all those! And you got the Snapdragon one. I love that. I mean, I was like, oh,
that's I've got. I was lucky enough to get a couple of cases from them for the Samsungs, but as well, I've got my Oppo. I've got Pixel 6 here. I've got the Oppo N2 Flip. There's absolutely great.
What skin have you got on that?
Yeah,
it's not a skin. It's actually a case that they had limited edition.
That's cool.
It's
so it looks like, is that a first party Oppo case? It looks like what it looks like.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
They were theoretically only released in Italy for, in my opinion, way too much money. But
no joke.
UK Oppo was really nice to me, and after I've done like a survey with them, and how do you call those? Just basically talk about the product, how I'm using it, how I would be seeing it progressing. They sent one of those to me, or two, I think 2 of those. So
yeah.
Are you also an Oppo ambassador at all? Or?
No. I just really enjoy. I know. I never get those kind of things, but it never stops me from liking a company, nevertheless.
Yeah, you should consider though, because I think you do a good job of that.
Oh, thank you. I mean, my followers, like my following, haven't grew whatsoever for the past 5 years. So I think being in mid-30s, it's kind of hard to break through to be a influencer.
Right.
But
well, and also I got one of these too. I didn't tell you, Joe. I have the Tidbit These are so great.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's where I live. Quality, of course, is F, which means fail. Terrible. But yeah, these are great, man. I love this thing. I got like sports scores and like a little ticker. This is pretty cool. Like it's called TID BYT. I have no meetings because it's a Sunday, and this is tied to my actual calendar.
Got one of them as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, these things are great, man. It's a lot of fun. And actually, if I had a lot of energy, I could write an API to put my own shit on here. But and of course, the Bears lost because of course they fucking did. They're 0-2 now. So much for that awesome season. Fucking dicks. Whatever, man. I hate sports. Anyway, but yeah, Peter, if you would like to come back, dude, you always have an open invitation, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on. And I've been excited about this, having you come on, because I know you're always in the chat and always making really great comments, and having you on has been awesome. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to spend and share with us today. It's been awesome.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Joe's rocking the 2007 Arsenal kit, so that's very good of him. Me, I'm just hanging out. So that we have no guests next week, and I guess that would technically, Joe, that'd be our last episode of the season. And then we'll have TK on schedule for October 1st, and then we'll have a new logo. It'll be season 3, and we're gonna come with a little bit of a different approach as far as guests and stuff like that. We would still obviously. We're never going to turn away anybody who would like to come on the show and discuss some stuff, but we're having more of a rotational kind of like Dan and Fat Produce and Peter, that kind of thing. We'd like to have everybody having our buddies in there. So I guess that's it. So for myself and for Joe,
Sam, before we go, so I've started a MeWe community.
That's right,
for the Nomad Tech project. I'll put it on Twitter. All our followers are welcome to join, because that's what I like about the chat. I want to be able to engage with you guys more, not just on a weekly basis, but every day. Join the MeWe. I'll put that on Twitter.
Absolutely. Yeah, I forgot about the MeWe. Thanks, Joe, for doing that. Like I said, it's really good. MeWe chat also too, and that'd be fantastic. And also just, we're on the social medias, and so the Nomad Tech Project, and we're also on the Twitter, the X, and the Instagram. We don't have an Instagram. Yeah. We don't have an Instagram. We don't need an Instagram. We've not got that one. Cool. No, we're good. Also, by the way, playing Starfield, and it runs a lot better on the Xbox. Apparently they're right. Apparently my PC sucks and I can't run it, but on the Xbox I downloaded on Game Pass, it's pretty good. I'm digging it. It's got basically it's Fallout in space. That's basically what the game is.
Sounds good.
It's all right. It's not too bad. So
I think it's amazing what this game going to be in a couple of years, though.
Oh yeah, I think they're definitely not gonna. They're gonna throw some effort behind it, because I think it's definitely got some push. It's a lot of fun. So we'll see. So far so good. I can play it now. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's not too bad. So Joe, that's it for myself and Piotr. Thanks for coming to the Nomad Tech Project with Sam and Joe for this 17th of September. We're going to be back next week on the 24th, the last show of the season. Then October 1st would be with TK. And always enjoy your tech. Thanks for stopping by. Again, Jimmy, thanks for making the contributions to the channel, and everybody else's comments, and Shark and Aditya and Mike and Luis. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate it. Love you guys. Enjoy your tech. Be excellent to each other, and we'll catch you next week on the Nomad Tech Project with Sam and Joe. I'm tired. It's been a long day. I had a long week, dude. I'm tired. All right, for myself, for Joe and Piotr, take care, guys. Love you guys. Bye.
Take care.